Have you ever had that feeling while driving a car? You're cruising along, everything seems fine, but suddenly, a little red light flickers on the dashboard, the check engine light. You have two choices. You can ignore it, turn up the radio, and hope it goes away. Or you can pull over and pop the hood to see what's actually wrong before the engine seizes up. Right now, in the United States of America, the geopolitical check engine light is flashing red. And it has been for a while. We all feel it. We know that something is not right. Regardless of where you fall on the political spectrum, there is a shared, unsettling sense that things are wobbly, that the ground beneath our feet isn't as solid as it used to be. History is funny. It doesn't repeat itself exactly. The players change. The technology changes. But as Mark Twain supposedly said, it often rhymes. Patterns emerge. For thousands of years, we've watched great powers rise. They start hungry, unified, and disciplined. They reach a golden age of dominance. And then, almost inevitably, they begin a slow, often painful slide into decline. We saw it with Rome. We saw it with the Spanish Empire. We saw it with the British Empire. The uncomfortable question we have to ask today is it America's turn? Today, we aren't just going to look at headlines. We are going to look at history. The men who founded the United States were obsessed with history. They didn't build the Constitution hoping everything would just work out. They studied why past republics failed so they could build a machine designed to resist those failures. They gave us an owner's manual. But lately, we've been throwing that manual out the window. In this video, we're going to explore 3 massive structural mistakes the U.S. is currently making that mirror the downfalls of past empires. We'll look at how these mistakes actively contradict the warnings of the founders, and why continuing down this path won't just lead to a bump in the road, but could accelerate a genuine decline. This isn't about pessimism. It's about popping the hood and looking at the engine. Let's get started. Part 1. The Trap of Overextension. The Roman Parallel. When we talk about empires falling, the first one everyone thinks of is Rome. Why did Rome fall? It wasn't just one day when barbarians showed up at the gate. The rot started centuries earlier, and the biggest factor was something called imperial overstretch. Rome got too big. It had borders it couldn't defend, and a military it couldn't afford to pay without debasing its currency. They were fighting wars thousands of miles from home, while the streets of Rome itself were crumbling and its citizens were struggling to eat. Does that sound familiar? The United States has the most powerful military in human history. There are enormous global responsibilities. Many argue that American power keeps the sea lanes open and prevents major world wars. There is truth to that. That being said, there is a massive difference between smart defense and strategic exhaustion. U.S. is currently committed to defending dozens of nations globally. It's deeply entangled in conflicts in Eastern Europe, the Middle East, and facing down tensions in Asia. The cost, in trillions of dollars, and focus, is staggering. The mistake isn't having a strong military. The mistake is allowing the external obligations to bleed dry internal strength. This isn't a new concern. In 1961, President Dwight D. Eisenhower, a 5-star general, the man who beat the Nazis, used his final speech to warn America not about a foreign enemy, but about the military-industrial complex. He feared an immense military establishment that would become a force unto itself, perpetually searching for monsters to destroy, draining the nation's resources. Even earlier, the founders were terrified of this. George Washington, in his famous farewell address, practically begged future generations to avoid entangling alliances and permanent antipathies toward other nations. John Quincy Adams famously said America goes not abroad in search of monsters to destroy. Why? Because they knew that republics die when they become empires. When a nation spends more time and treasure policing the far corners of the globe than it does educating its children, fixing its infrastructure, or ensuring the health of its own citizens at home, the foundation begins to crack. You cannot be a superpower abroad if you are hollowed out at home. Rome learned that the hard way. When the center is weak, the edges collapse. Right now, America is heavily focused on the edges, while the center is showing severe signs of structural fatigue. Part 2. The debt bomb and the erosion of virtue, the Spanish-British parallel. This brings us to the second major mistake, and it's the one nobody likes to talk about because it involves math and hard choices. It's debt. Let's look at the Spanish Empire in the 1500s. They discovered the New World and suddenly had ships full of gold and silver pouring into Spain. They became fabulously wealthy overnight. But they made a fatal mistake. They confused money with wealth. Instead of building industries, developing agriculture, or educating their people, they just spent the gold. They bought things from other countries. They fought expensive wars. When the gold finally stopped flowing, Spain had nothing left but massive debts and an economy that didn't know how to make anything. Comparatively, the United States has the world's reserve currency, the dollar. It is an incredibly powerful tool. It allows the government to borrow money very cheaply. It's the version of Spain's gold ships. But, like Spain, U.S. is abusing the privilege. It is currently running a national debt that is almost incomprehensible in size. The country is financing its current lifestyle, both government programs and consumer spending, by printing money and borrowing from future generations. The founders were deeply divided on many things, but they mostly agreed on the danger of public debt. Thomas Jefferson called excessive debt the pathway to servitude. He believed that one generation should not shoulder the next with its bills. He viewed it as a form of moral theft. The mistake here isn't just financial. It's philosophical. It represents a shift from long-term building to short-term consumption. When an empire prioritizes immediate gratification over long-term stability, it's in the late stages. We see this in our economy. We've shifted away from making tangible things, manufacturing, toward financialization, moving money around to make money. The British Empire suffered a similar fate. In their later years, they relied more on the City of London. Their financial district done, their industrial heartlands, they became the world's banker, but they lost the industrial edge that made them great in the first place. When the smartest minds in a generation go into devising complex financial instruments rather than engineering better infrastructure or inventing new technologies, the engine of national power begins to sputter. We are mortgaging our children's future to pay for our present comfort. That is not the behavior of a rising power. It is the behavior of one in decline. Part 3. The enemy within. Factionalism over patriotism, the Greek parallel. And now, we arrive at the third mistake. This is the one that feels the most urgent right now. It's the poison in the bloodstream. If you look at the ancient Greek city-states, like Athens and Sparta, they were brilliant. They gave us democracy, philosophy, and incredible art. But they constantly tore each other apart with internal divisions and civil wars. Often, the Greeks hated their opposing political faction within their own city more than they hated external enemies like the Persians. Don't you see the similarity? The United States is currently experiencing a level of internal division, what we call polarization or tribalism, that we haven't seen perhaps since the 1850s, just before the Civil War. We aren't just disagreeing on policy, we are inhabiting different realities. We have different sets of facts. If our side does something, it's good. If the other side does the exact same thing, it's catastrophic evil. We have replaced patriotism, a love for the whole country, with factionalism, loyalty only to our specific tribe. This is exactly what kept the founders awake at night. James Madison wrote extensively about the danger of factions in Federalist No. 10, but the direst warning came again from George Washington. In that same farewell address, Washington warned that political parties would eventually become engines for cunning, ambitious, and unprincipled men to subvert the power of the people and usurp the reins of government. He warned that if we let party loyalty override national loyalty, it would lead to a frightful despotism. The mistake the United States is making today is ignoring that warning completely. We have allowed a media ecosystem and social media algorithms to monetize our anger. They profit by telling us that our neighbors who vote differently aren't just wrong, but that they are existential enemies. When a society can no longer agree on basic truths, when it cannot solve problems, because it's too busy trying to own the other side, when political victory is more important than the national good, that society is on a deathbed. An empire that is at war with itself cannot stand against challenges from the outside. China, Russia, and other competitors. Look at this internal chaos, not with fear, but with mockery, and see it as an opportunity. They don't need to defeat the United States. They just need to wait for US to accomplish its own destruction. What are we dealing with? Immense debt linked to short-termism and paralyzing internal division. The parallels to Rome, Spain, Britain, and Greece are visible to anyone willing to look. The warnings from Washington, Jefferson, and Madison are ringing in our ears. So, is this it? Is the American sunset inevitable? Absolutely not. The beauty of studying history is that it shows us that nothing is written in stone. The difference between the United States and many past empires is that the US was designed to be self-correcting. We have mechanisms for change that Rome didn't have. But a self-correcting mechanism only works if the operators choose to use it. The mistake isn't that we have problems. Every nation has problems. The mistake is pretending they don't exist, or worse, profiting from them. The founders believed that a republic required something very specific to survive: virtue in its citizens. John Adams wrote, "Our Constitution was made only for a moral and religious people. It is wholly inadequate to the government of any other." He didn't necessarily mean religious in a strict theological sense, but a people capable of restraining their own appetites for the greater good. A people who value truth over tribalism. If we want to reverse the trajectory, we have to stop waiting for a savior politician on a white horse to fix it. The fix starts with us refusing the bait of division. It starts with demanding fiscal reality rather than comforting lies. It starts with recognizing that our national strength begins at home, in our communities, not in military bases halfway around the world. The check engine light is on. We can still fix the car, but we have to pull over and start working on it now. What do you think? Let me know in comments below. If we bring you value, please subscribe, like, and share. Thanks for watching.